Knuckles Chaotix has always been under the radar of the Sonic games, but it features a very unique mechanic. You have a partner and are connected to him with a rubber band. One thing, however, has not changed to the other Sonic games. You still have those golden rings that protect you from dying should you get hit. But what if we leave this vital detail out? My name is Andreas, also called Andy, and in the next 30 minutes I will answer one of the questions that no one has asked. Is it possible to beat Knuckles Chaotix without collecting rings? I hope you enjoy it. The rules are the following. Rule number 1, and probably only important rule, I'm not allowed to collect any ring. If I do, I have to reset to the last possible place, for example the last save state. Yes, I use save states, I don't care. I just want to know if it's theoretically possible. This exactly means that the ring counter must not rise above 0, and if it goes to a value below 0, it must not rise above that. What's below 0? How is that possible? Yeah! Rule number 2. I'm not allowed to use the partner call. The game gives you the opportunity by pressing A and using up 10 rings to call the partner to the place you're at, which is especially useful to solve softlock situations. But in any other place, I'm not allowing myself to do that, because I'd play some time alone and I want a maximum of teamwork. The same applies for rule number 3. Outside boss fights, I must not take hit. For the reason that if I take hit without having rings, the partner disappears for 10 seconds and I'd play that time alone. Even further, I can force the situation by waiting 1 minute and taking hit from Metal Sonic. Rule number 4. I can change characters in between levels. After each level, I can exit the game, re-enter it, and choose a different character. This shall be allowed, because if I don't think I can beat a stage with a character, why can't I choose a different one? And last half rule, I can only use glitches in emergency cases where I cannot skip rings otherwise. Not that I hate glitches, but I want to see something from the game. Okay, enough talking, let's begin. We start with Knuckles in the so-called introduction stage and oh, that's not convenient. It's impossible to get over that, but maybe with a running start and yes! Oh no, now it's over already, were my thoughts in training, but after many tries I did this. And in the recording I did it in first try already. We get Espio as our first partner. After a cutscene with Dr. Eggman and Metal Sonic, we get to the main part of the introduction stage that is split in 4 parts. But the first 2 parts have almost no rings, so they are basically free. That changes with the third area, however. There we really have the first hard places, especially springs with rings over them. And this place is really hard as well. We can't just climb upwards, because we have to go over these rings, and if we approach it from the left, we have other ring boxes and rings in our way. And then another spring with rings over it. Yay. To go to the end of the third area, we shouldn't go to the left. It's way better to get to the right and just climb upwards to safely reach the end. The last area is not better, however. We still have the springs with rings over it. But if we carefully approach our way upwards, we can actually complete the stage without collecting any rings. After 6 minutes! Wow, who would have thought that the first stage already would be that hard? From now on, we can choose the character we want to play with, and I take Charmy. Ah yeah, Charmy. He is so easy to control. If you press the jump button, he flies into the direction he is looking. So if you press a direction and jump, he flies into exactly that direction. However, he can't carry the partner character, or at least not as easy as if you would play with someone else. In the capture game, I take Mighty as my partner, because he's the fastest. But I could also imagine taking Knuckles or Espio, or maybe even Bomb. I wouldn't recommend using Vector or Heavy, however, because their hitboxes are too big. Then we continue on into the selection of the stage. We have Amazing Arena, Botanic Base, Techno Tower, Speed Slider and Marina Madness, and each of them are split up into 5 acts, with a boss in the last act. so we have 25 stages to play, and whenever I finished one of them, I will write down the number of rings I had to collect into this table. Also, there are the times of the day. Every time a stage is completed, the clock advances by 3 hours, and every 6 hours the time of the day changes. We have morning, day, sunset and night. This doesn't only have visual effects on a stage, but also may change its objects. For example, we shouldn't play Marina Madness 2 at day, because at the beginning there are rings that are pretty hard to skip. So we also have to think about when we want to play which stage. In this case, RNG gave me morning first. The roulette is also affected by the time of the day. At morning it runs counterclockwise, at day a bit faster clockwise, at sunset completely random, and at night very fast clockwise. We have to stop the roulette from spinning to get the stage we have to play next. In this case it became Marina Madness. The roulette gives us a bit ability to control which stage we play next, but I play with save states anyway, so I can choose my own order. Now let's play our first stage, Marina Madness 1. After approaching the first obstacles carefully, I went on and took the lower path. This, however, might not have been the best idea, because we face our first major roadblock here. I had to load the save states a lot of times. And also, I will show this only now and not later anymore, because I guess you can all imagine how it works loading save states a lot of times. After a long jump, I cleared this, however, and faced the next obstacles slowly, carefully, climbing my way more and more upwards, and finally finishing the stage ringless. And so the first level is clear. Okay, the first level besides the introduction stage maybe. The stage I decided to do second was Marina Madness again! In Marina Madness 2 we have the place at first that I showed at day before, which was impossible. At morning it's pretty easy, but it gets harder soon, and sometimes I wish not to be charmy. But here I do, because we have a tight corridor with rings. This I really would not want to do without charmy. I managed to skip these rings after many tries, went a bit more upwards, and landed in a place where I kept collecting rings because I somehow never saw them coming, and approached it from above to get past it. Then we have a crossing. You can go to the left and press the switch, or what I did was to go up and take a bit of a shortcut. I evaded more rings and managed to complete Marina Madness 2 also without collecting rings. The third stage I played was Marina Madness again. Time changed from morning to day, by the way. At the beginning I landed on this boat and used a trick to get through its bottom, but I guess you can do it without that as well. The way leads down and then very far to the right, and there are quite a few rings on it. At the lower right I could just fly upwards like that. At this place there are rings left of the wall and rings right of the wall, so I had to land on this platform. After this there are a few places with some rings, but nothing that was too hard. Generally you don't have much of a choice here, because there's only one way you can go, and it leads to this switch, which will take you to the last big area. Still, there are some rings that are pretty tricky to avoid, but after having done that you can just go up and then walk into the goal and finish Marina Madness 3 also ringless. Let's go to stage number 4, and it is Botanic Base 1. Botanic Base mostly has very many ways to choose from, and especially Botanic Base 1 is a very open stage as well. I decided to fly up at the beginning, then go to the right and fly up again, because it's the shortest path. More to the right the ways go back together again, but at the far right there are some rings, so I decided to fly up here and take a shortcut. Then I just strolled into the goal. It's a very easy stage overall. My first sunset stage will be Botanic Base 2, which is already a lot harder than Botanic Base 1 because it's much more closed. At the beginning I chose to go the upper right path. Left is hardly possible, if at all. We also have a pretty bad placed ring box here, but it's not an obstacle in the end. After the ways merge back together, we have this tight downward slope with rings on it, but I passed that as well. At the next crossing I chose to go downwards directly and not go to the left to fall all the way down, because I thought this way would be more possible than the other one. But we see there are a lot of hard obstacles to pass. Especially these last rings here are harder to avoid than it looks like. In the end, I managed to complete the stage without collecting rings. Next is Marina Madness once again. Yes, I just want to be done with that. At the beginning, there are some narrow spaces with rings in them. After clearing that, you go to the right while avoiding more rings. You shouldn't press the switch because you go more to the right and straight through the rings. It's better to just fly up instead. And you fly up a lot after that. Generally, Marina Madness 4 is a pretty short stage. If the first 3 zones were like that, Marina Madness probably wouldn't be as annoying as it is. After a well-timed jump over the last 2 monitors, I can go into the goal and clear Marina Madness 4 also ringless. The night has come and I play Amazing Arena for the first time. In Amazing Arena, you always have to press a switch to turn on the lights before finishing the stage. I go up and soon land in this very bad ring formation, but it's important that it's exactly like that. Keep this place in mind for later. I evade some more rings, but not all of them. But Andreas, why do you collect 4 rings there? Don't you want to collect 0 rings? Yeah, so this pod lets me fly through them anyway. Afterward, there are many tight spots one after another, but it's entirely doable. I land in another pod and that one lets me fly through the place I mentioned before, and I will show you what happens at the other times of the day. All of the times except for the night you will collect at least 2 rings, so it's important that you play at night. I took the mini-boss route without actually playing it, and had no trouble reaching the goal. But I still had to collect the 4 rings. At least I thought so. Then a Sonic speedrunning community member, S2, caught my attention. Apparently, with Knuckles, at some places where wall and ceiling come together, if you climb at the exact right spot of the wall, you can clip through the ceiling. The partner call is legit by the way, because else you would be softlocked. The 4 rings can be skipped like that easily. Still, you have to play at night, because with the pod, you go through the place with the rings. At least until someone finds a similar skip to skip that as well. Also, many thanks to S2 for saying, hey, I even record the whole stage for you ringless. But he didn't take the route with the mini-boss, he took the other one, which was probably the better idea. Anyway, thanks to S2, we still have only 0 standing in the table. Next is Amazing Arena 2. At the beginning of this stage, you go up and to the right to the first pod. After leaving it, we already have the switch for the lights. We go down to the second pod that leads to the next area. Getting there, we go up a lot to another pod. The whole time we have rings in our way that you can dodge more or less easily. Sometimes I've also been a bit lucky doing that. I took the route with the mini-boss again and I skipped it. Afterwards, there are no more rings on the way, so we have no trouble completing the stage. If you're aware of the times of the day, you should have noticed that we are back at the morning again, and I play Marina Madness 5 to finally finish this level. At the beginning I had to press a button, and soon I find myself in a pretty dangerous spot. Then the way goes to another button, and I made a small compilation. You see why it's not possible to clear this level without collecting rings at either sunset or night. The way continues onwards to the right, and we come to a crossing. Going up isn't possible without collecting rings, so I go to the right, which also leads up. After the ways reunite, we have another button, but this time I don't press it. Instead I go all the way to the right and fly upwards to take a bit of a shortcut. Generally, the rest of the stage is basically going up, but you still have to watch out to not collect any rings. On to the boss, but I won't show the bosses here, because there isn't much to show when the bosses don't have any rings besides them. I peeled the boss out of its crystal shell, defeated it, and completed Marina Madness 5 and whole Marina Madness without collecting rings. Whew, I'm glad that's done. You see the field with the 4 inside where Marina Madness once was? That one cannot be rolled anymore. Botanic Base 3. Right at the beginning there are rings that are a bit tricky to avoid, but I managed to do it after going down and then to the right. Far more up, there's a crossing, and I went the way to the left, but I had to go down and then fly up again. I went in one of the back doors that are in Botanic Base 3, 4 and 5 and have alternative paths. Because they don't have any rings you have to collect, they're a good choice for us. After the ways go back together, we don't have much trouble with the next section until we get to this part with 2 groups of rings and an enemy. Later, there's another crossing, and this time I went the way to the upper right, because it's much shorter than the other ones, and actually we are almost at the end of the level anyway. I didn't have any problems clearing the last obstacles and was able to finish the stage without collecting any rings. Amazing Arena 3. We have day again. In the first room you can execute a glitch at the ceiling. For that you have to fly at the right angle against the diagonal and land in the room above it. This would be the alternative, a pod that leads you through 2 rings, so I used this glitch. The next ring formations are a bit hard to avoid with Charmy, but I managed to do it and go the way to the right. From there on I go up and to the switch. The crossing that determines the way is here already, the pod I took was on the upper left. In the next area our rings are pretty easy to avoid, except for one place that needs a bit of precision. It was the route with the mini-boss again, and of course I skipped it again. Yeah, and then we have the goal, so Amazing Arena 3 is also doable without rings. Amazing Arena 4. And I want to mention beforehand that I had to record the stage again, because at that time I didn't know about a glitch that I use here, so my score and those things will look a little bit different now. Anyway, the way up to the first pod isn't that hard, but the pod itself leads through 2 rings that we cannot skip. Annoying. A bit more up the way is the switch, guarded by rings. Then I go back down through the same rings to execute the glitch. I collected the small upgrade and then I spam hold at the round part of the way. The alternative looks like this, flying upwards through more ring formations and taking the pod, which automatically lets us collect 2 more rings. In any case, we have this group of 4 rings that's pretty hard to skip. We have the non-mini-boss route this time, but the one with a big area and a tube at the end that leads directly to the goal. But unfortunately we had to collect 2 rings. Or that's what I thought, once again. Because in this stage as well, a member of the Sonic speedrunning community found a glitch that actually lets us skip the last 2 rings as well. I'm talking about Hagenburg, 2-fold world record holder in this game by the way. S2, whom I mentioned before, asked him if he could look into this stage and he actually found something that helps us. And he recorded the whole stage for us as well. Thanks for that by the way. There's a bit of precision necessary and another wall ceiling glitch to pull it off without collecting any rings. However, Hagenburg violated some of my extra rules. He just didn't know that I have these rules. But we sat together afterwards and tried to figure out if these places can be done with these rules as well, and luckily it was possible. Therefore, Amazing Arena 4 can be completed without collecting any rings, which I wouldn't have thought. Thanks to Hagenburg for helping us. Botanic Base 4. I want to be done with Botanic Base because it's almost as annoying as Marina Madness. At the beginning, there's a path on the upper left that lets us skip parts of the stage without seeing any rings so far. Flying a bit more up, there's also a secret passage that we can use to skip more of the way without any danger. Therefore, the first half of the stage isn't very hard to do. That changes soon, however. This place took me very long to get through. We have 4 rings, 2 in the air and 2 in a very tight corridor. And it doesn't even get better after that. This ring formation also is very hard to avoid. At the next crossing, I took the elevator on the upper left to get to another secret passage all the way down. At the exit, I fly up and the only 4 mentionable rings are these. Man, we are on a roll with all these zeros. Let's hope it keeps going. Techno Tower 1. I didn't do Speed Slider or Techno Tower up to this point because in my opinion, except for one of them, they are filler stages that you can basically do anytime. The beginning wasn't so hard to do. In the middle I took the route with the door. I could have gone up already here to make it even more trivial, because I have to fly all the way up anyway. And that's it. Nothing more to say about this. Easy 0 rings in this stage. Amazing Arena 5. Oh boy, Amazing Arena 5. I mean, the start of the stage is pretty easy. Without too many rings, we go up to the first pot. And yes, this seems to be the level of pots as we see later. Further up, there's the switch, and so far it has been too hard. But now. This place is probably the hardest in the whole game. Look at how many rings this is! I ended up going backwards a bit to let those crumbling platforms respawn and have an easier time positioning when falling down. But even then, it's far from over. We have to pass these 16 rings again to finally get to the pot. Afterwards, there's a crossing. I go to the right to the next spot. And through a hallway to pot number 4. This is one of 2 routes with a mini-boss. But this time, the game even gives you the opportunity to pass it on the left. Flying upwards, we have the real boss this time. He seems to project enemies on a screen that become reality. After a few hits, he is done for, and whole Amazing Arena has been completed without rings. That was pretty hard. Time for something easier. Techno Tower 2. From the starting point you can keep left and just fly upwards. Then it's a little bit tricky. The highest path is blocked by rings, so you have to somehow get in the middle and then fly up. Does the blue ring count as well? Don't know. According to my rules, I'd say no. In the middle, I take the path I already took in Techno Tower 1. At the outside, I fly up left of the tower and reach the goal, so except for one place, everything was easy. Let's go from an easy stage to one of the hardest ones, Botanic Base 5. Hell breaks loose from the beginning here, when I see what I had to do to dodge the first rings already. And it doesn't become better later. I go to the left path, because at least it leads to another secret passage where I don't have to put as much thought into. But the problem becomes obvious soon. The game wants us to run down this path and just collect a few rings nearby. For our challenge, not so good. At the crossing, I go up left into the elevator to get to the next secret passage. The last third of the stage gets really hard. Rings are scattered around everywhere. Ah, help me, I don't want this. To top it off, we have this place at the very end. These 3 rings to the right. And I don't think I've seen such a tight corridor before. I go to a well-deserved boss fight. He electroshocks its surroundings and grabs hold of our partner. After defeating it, I've completed Botanic Base 5 without rings. But oh man, that was hard. Only Techno Tower and Speed Slider are left. That means from this point on it can only get better. Techno Tower 3. At the beginning there isn't much that has to worry us, especially not many rings. At one point you can also just fly to the middle of the stage. From there on, it's just like Techno Tower 1 and 2. I take the door, outside I fly up left of the tower and get to the goal already, so Techno Tower 3 is also done. Techno Tower 4. I will show you the beginning of this stage in all times of the day. We have the choice between 8 rings that aren't impossible but hard to avoid, or we just play, as I did, at day, where we walk through this place. That's why this stage is the exception I mentioned before when I was talking about filler stages. Also, I'll cut in the whole stage this time, just for fun, and to show you how easy this challenge can be if you could how you wanted. I didn't even use save states here. Okay, I needed to reset 2 or 3 times, but who cares? The route I took here is the same as the one I took in the first 3 acts, to the middle and up. Techno Tower always has the goal at its peak. Speed Slider 1. Finally it's the turn of Speed Slider. At the beginning I just fly upwards until the highest platform in the stage. Because we still have day, there are not even rings in the way that could bother me. Then I take the higher middle and go all the way to the right, and there's the goal already. Speed Slider 1 is probably the shortest level in the game. Techno Tower 5 looks almost equal at all times of the day, so we can leave that for last. For now we play Speed Slider 2. I don't immediately fly upwards, instead I go to the right and evade the first rings. From there I fly upwards, and then to the right? I don't know. Speed Slider makes it hard to describe which way you go. I fly upright over the center of the stage, run the path back down, and the goal is a bit further upwards. The Speed Slider stages in general are pretty easy, because they are very open and don't contain that many rings. Speed Slider 3. It goes well, we only have 4 stages left. At the beginning I got confused a bit while trying to find my way upwards. I even got a big upgrade out of it. And generally, upright is a pretty good direction. I run the way back down, and at the center I fly up. 1 level higher and I can just walk to the goal. Okay, maybe I was a bit overly careful here. In Speed Slider 4, comparing to the last 2 stages, I can describe pretty well which path I went. Plainly, the lowest. You can take it by going down left at the beginning. At this place, maybe I should have gone up instead, to make my life a bit easier. Now, the way was a bit longer, and I also had a few more obstacles to avoid. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Goal is goal, especially without rings. Technically I should leave Techno Tower 5 for last, but I didn't want to. The route I take here is the only one I think is possible without collecting rings. I fly up in the middle and get to a plate that flings me even more upwards, but I immediately have to steer back down to not land in those rings. The rest of the way to the upper right is done easily, as there are no rings anymore. Time to defeat Eggman once again. He sits in a roof that's put onto the tower, and he attacks with his arms, lasers and mirrors. After the usual 8 hits, he is defeated, and Techno Tower is completed. The roulette looks a bit boring now, but okay, it's the last stage. Speed Slider 5. As in Speed Slider 4, I just took the lowest path. You can reach it by going right at the beginning and fall down. There are no serious obstacles here. Maybe I could have made my life easier and fly up sooner again. The boss is a carousel with spiky platforms. After defeating it, I completed Speed Slider 5. This actually means all 25 normal stages are possible ringless. But we are not quite done yet. We still have to face the final boss, Metal Sonic. There are no rings here, so it's not that important, but instead of the stages he now chooses one of the weapons he wants to use against us. But if the pointer lands on the cross, one of the weapons gets destroyed, so we have to do this 4 times and he is done for. Then he escapes and goes into his second phase. Metal Sonic Kai. This boss is... wait a minute. Why do I have 10 rings? Where do they come from? What is this? I didn't collect them. But maybe they come from this cutscene. 10 rings are falling down here. And you can also shortly see the overlay with 0 rings and suddenly it's 10. Whatever. After hitting both of his arms and his laser body 8 times, I defeated him and can watch my undeserved bad ending. But for the good ending, I would have to collect the 6 Chaos Rings, where I have to go to the special stages, which I can only do if collecting 50 rings at the end of an act, so it's not possible at all. With this, we completed the game with this challenge. And we only needed 4 glitches to do it. Amazing Arena 1, 3 and 2 times 4. But what is it now? Can we beat Knuckles Chaotix without collecting rings? The answer is no. The 10 rings at the final boss break it. Of course you can discuss now and say that the rules are to not collect any rings and I technically didn't collect them but got them handed over. But I also said that the ring counter must not rise above 0, so I don't know. Make it what you want. The ones of you who know this game probably knew right from the start that it would fail at the final boss. And I as well knew before I even started this challenge that it wouldn't be possible, but I still wanted to look into the other stages what can be done there. And I'd say the result is really satisfying. We only have zeros besides the 10 rings at the final boss, and that is indeed a very astounding outcome. With this we reach the end. Almost all of the gameplay, the recordings and all of the cuts were made by me, Andy. Shoutouts also to our top speedrunners S2 and Hagenburg, without whom I'd still be at 16 rings. And thank you very much viewers for watching until the end. I hope you liked it, have a nice day and see ya!